Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Charmaine Mendez, Adult Services Librarian from the Moreno Valley Public Library. Welcome to our virtual author showcase event. A few announcements before we begin. As a reminder, all of your microphones are muted and your videos turned off to respect your privacy because this presentation is being recorded. If you have any questions for our presenter, leave them in the chat and I'll get them to her, or feel free to unmute your microphone at the end to ask a question then if you prefer. Now I'll introduce our special guest. Stephanie Carter is a children's book author with a background in civil engineering. She resides in California's Inland Empire with her mother, two younger sisters, and two nephews. Stephanie is a manager for one of the largest general contractors in construction. Within the company she works for, Stephanie serves as one of the founding members and lead recruiters of their internal Black Network organization. Her role in recruiting involves training, outreach, professional interviewing, resume review, writing, and editing. Stephanie has been featured on 2 episodes of LPD Cast, which is a leadership and professional development podcast for first-gen students of color. She wrote a book, To Love Me is to Love the Skin I'm In, to help young kids appreciate their natural beauty and know their achievements are not limited by the way they look. Stephanie hopes this book will spark conversation about colorism and how to embrace who we are. Thank you, Stephanie, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Charmaine, and thank you to Moreno Valley Public Library for allowing me the opportunity to participate in this author showcase event. And for those on the call, thank you for calling in. I'm really excited to share with you my journey and how I came to publish To Love Me is to Love the Skin I'm In, which is my first published book as an author. So a little bit about who I am outside of writing before I jump into the meat and potatoes of my book. So I wear a few different hats. By day, I work full-time as a manager, project manager for a general contractor in construction on the commercial side. As Charmaine mentioned, I have a background in civil engineering, so I took the management route. So that's what I do during the day. I'm doing that for about over 10 years. So that's something that I love and enjoy. So that's the manager hat. I also participate in dance. See in that photo there. That's one of my favorite pastimes. I used to dance in high school and I picked it back up about 1.5 years ago. And so that's something that I also enjoy in my free time. My family is a huge part of my life. So that's us in the upper corner there in our Christmas themed outfit that I had to force everybody into. But so love spending time with them. Something positive that came out of the pandemic, which is in the photo below, is we started doing weekly brunches together. So every Sunday we have brunch, we rotate who cooks. So that's my favorite part of the week. In addition to those things, I love traveling. So below that is a photo of my friends and I in Rome. This is probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And I love learning about different cultures, about different backgrounds, and talking to different people and hearing their stories and where they come from and what makes them who they are. And hiking is also a big part of my life. I like doing forms of exercise that don't feel as monotonous to me as going to the gym. So that's something that my friends and I, we go hiking at least once a month. We try, different hikes throughout Southern California. Another thing that I enjoy doing, which I'll touch on a little bit later here, is bubble baths, meditation. So I'm big into self-care and putting, your mental health and well-being first, and having me time, as I like to call it. And all of those things, when did I first discover that I love writing? I would say that started probably about high school time frame is really when I started understanding the art and the joy of writing and utilizing words to express how I was feeling and utilizing words to move people, to create different messages. And I had a lot of teachers in high school during that time that, created different assignments or recommended me to apply for different contests that had to do with writing or encourage different poetry writing exercises. And so that's something that I picked up then and discovered that that is kind of what I like to call a hidden passion of mine, that happens to be something that I enjoy doing. All right, so to share with you guys what you came here to learn about, which is my book. So To Love Me is to Love the Skin I'm In. It tells a story of Deja, and Deja is a fifth grader, dark-skinned African-American young girl in her adolescent who she's going through a difficult time in her life. She doesn't feel beautiful. She doesn't feel comfortable in her skin. She doesn't feel like she belongs or has a place. And even though she has people in her life that look like her older sister, her parents, I think all of us can relate to the influence that our social environment can have on us. And so she doesn't see a lot of positivity being, promoted around people that look like her when it comes to the media or music or politics or that kind of thing. And so she doesn't really appreciate or recognize, how beautiful she is. And until she gets some help from her older sister who shares with her some of her experiences and how she worked through some of her self-esteem issues during her age. But she also goes on this magical adventure with her mystical mirror, where she learns about different women that look like her that are successful from all different realms. So people in politics, women in entertainment industry, women in sports, historians that made, strides in science. And so from there, she realizes, that she's comes from a people that have so many talents and so many has made so many historical ways to pave the path for her going forward, and she begins to love and appreciate her features. And so that's really what the book is geared around, is creating positivity and trying to reach the youth at a young age so that they realize who they are and really embrace who they are and the people around them. So there were several elements that influenced why I wrote To Love Me Is to Love the Skin I'm In. So one of the big things for me, like I mentioned, is self-care. And the whole process of writing this book for me took about a year's time frame. And I know that time frame probably differs for a lot of different authors, right? So for me, there was a lot of things going on a year ago, right? We were and still are, in a pandemic. There were things going on in society in terms of social unrest, dealing with the murders of George Floyd, of Breonna Taylor. I had this photo of my grandmother and I. My grandmother was like a second mom to me, been with me since she was born. She passed away from COVID. And so all of these things were, influencing, what was going on in my head, how I was feeling, just sometimes feeling hopeless, feeling like, what is my role? What is my part in all of this going on? And how can I help, put something out there that's going to change the narrative, be something positive that we can look to. And so with that, this self-care wheel, if you haven't seen it before, I would, you can just Google self-care wheel. I first got introduced to it from a yoga retreat that I went to a few years ago. But there are several things on here, that I made it a goal kind of at the beginning of the year that I wanted to work on, even before some of these things started happening. And it became even more important, once we were in the thick of things with kind of all the elements that I just mentioned. But as far as, taking part in social justice, taking time for yourself to journal, taking breaks, vacations, figuring out ways to put yourself first in your mental well-being to make sure that you're taken care of. Keeping that at the forefront of my thoughts throughout the year really helped me try and push through some of these things and motivate me to follow through with writing this book. And writing a book has been something that's been on my goal list for, I'd probably say, about 7-8 years. And I've written 2 other books, and I didn't feel like I could go forward with those books because when I asked myself, well, what is the purpose? What is the message that I'm trying to create or influence or impact people with? I couldn't really answer that question. And it wasn't until I saw on Instagram a friend of mine that I went to college with, she had posted an image of a little girl that was holding a book, and I realized it was a book that she had self-published. And so when I saw that, it reignited the spark for me to pursue, my writing goal that I'd had for several years. Before, I kind of felt like I didn't push it as far as I wanted to go. I kind of just left it alone. I couldn't answer that question about what the message about the other books were going to be or what I wanted to influence or impact. And I also didn't have any idea how to even go about publishing a book in the first place. And it just seemed like something that was just so out of reach or out of touch for me to do. But in seeing someone that I knew actually go through with publishing, got me thinking, well, it is something that's attainable, and I just need to figure it out. I need to do some research, not make any more excuses. Just, this is something that you want to do, get it done. It's on your self-care wheel. It's on your vision board that you created. So move forward with it. And now somebody that you can speak to personally that's gone through the process and can give you some advice. And so from that was, I woke up one Sunday morning before brunch, and I just had this story in my head, and I just started writing on a pad of paper. I had a couple pages there, and I was like, this is it. Like, I felt really good about it. I was like, this is what I want to move forward with. And from there, it was like, okay, well, what kind of book do I want it to be? Do I want it to be a children's book? Do I want it to be a chapter book? And I like the idea of the children's book because I feel like that's the most, or some of the most influential years that you can make an impact on how a person views their outlook of the world. And I started doing some research, once I kind of had the theme of self-love of the book. I had started doing some research to what ages are children primarily influenced, where they develop their self-worth and self-esteem. And that's where I came to the target age group of 8 to 11, that really it's that pre-adolescent or pre-middle school years where, you can make the most influence. And, I debated back and forth whether I wanted it to be kind of a short chapter book or if I wanted it to be be a picture book. But I chose to go with a picture children's book, even though it's a little bit on the older side, specifically because I didn't want people to read my book and create an image of Deja that was different from the one that I had of what I wanted her to look like in order to spread the message that I was trying to with this book. An interesting story, when I was interviewing different illustrators for my book, I paid 3 different illustrators to create an image of the first page of my book. I gave everyone the same information, and one of the illustrators actually came back with someone who looked completely different than what I had pictured Deja to be. And it kind of, for me, it just it emphasized the importance of creating the picture book, because even though the words may be there because of things that we've seen in the media, or how different elements outside of our normal lives may control how we view the world, it may impact the image that people create in their minds of what Deja looked like. And so I wanted that to be very, very clear of who she is. So now I will share, or I'll do a couple short readings from the book. These are 3 illustrations from my book, 3 pages that are my favorite, that I think speak clearly to what the message of the book is about. So this first image here this is actually Soraya, Deja's older sister, and to give some context, Soraya is telling Deja, a story of a time that she experienced feeling, left out or isolated, or not very confident in who she was when she was in elementary school. So she's sharing this story with Deja. So I'll read that page first. So Soraya reached for Deja's hand and continued. Eventually, Mom called and said it was time to go to school. I settled with the ponytail and the pink jacket I was wearing. At recess, my fears came true. No one picked me. So at this point, Soraya is referring to no one picked me to play kickball. That's what the scene here is. As I stood there alone, the last student in need of a team, I kept a straight face, but inside I was fighting the urge to cry. I began asking God why he cursed me with wide hips, wild coarse hair, and dark skin. Certainly, these had to be the reasons I was not chosen. I felt simply hopeless. So later in the story, Soraya does speak to Deja about how she overcame that particular situation. And now I'll jump to, this is Soraya and Deja. They've now gone on first part of their adventure with Deja's magical mirror. The mirror takes them to see Michelle Obama. And so these 2 images are in sequential order in the book. And so I'll read those 2 pages, which I feel are also very impactful to the message of my book. So here's the first page. Deja, this is Michelle Obama, the mayor began. She is an attorney who graduated from Harvard Law School. As our country's first African-American First Lady, she is in a position of power and her voice is heard. Her radiant smile and overflowing confidence are heightened by the color of her skin. Doesn't she look fabulous in that yellow dress? Soraya squeezed her sister's hand as she anxiously waited for the mirror to continue. Michelle was recognized among the world's 25 most inspiring women. Not only that, but Vanity Fair acknowledged her fashion sense. She made best dressed list 2 years in a row, explained the mirror. Deja stood in awe. A political leader and a role model rolled into one. Soraya snapped her fingers and they were off to another location. So a few elements here. So they continue on this journey, Soraya and Deja, and they get to meet different women, like I said, who look like them, who are beautiful, who are confident, who embrace everything about themselves. And they go on that adventure together, as a learning experience. And, Soraya has worked through a lot of her self-esteem issues, but this just further enunciates that, as well as with Deja. You know, now she's going with someone who she sees as a role model, who she sees as an advocate, who's a supporter in her corner, her sister, her older sister, and they both get to learn about women that look like them. And so those are the two scenes that I wanted to share that I think really speak to what the overall message of "To love me is to love the skin I'm in" is about. So in summary, as far as the themes of the book, you know, like I said, it's really about promoting self-love, you know, and acceptance of self, acceptance of others around you who may come from different backgrounds, you know, different races, ethnicities, people who live in maybe more affluent, who may be less affluent, being accepting of all of those different things, because we all bring something different and special and unique to the table, and really embracing that is important, and I think will help us as a nation, as a world, move forward as the new generations to come, to work through, you know, hopefully we don't have, you know, one day, it's work in progress, we don't have any more stories like George Floyd or Breonna Taylor to talk about. You know, we're far from that, but this is a start, you know, by putting books out there, by putting imagery out there that creates a different narrative around people of color. So I just kind of named out some of the themes here that, again, I really tried to promote with my book. So as far as the decision to self-publish versus traditional publishing, that was a pretty easy decision for me. Initially, I did look into going the traditional route, and I did reach out to a couple publishing firms, but I quickly realized that doing my research, you know, it was just going to take too long for what I wanted. You know, people were saying it would, you know, sometimes it took, you know, months, it could take years, and that's if you hear back at all. And, you know, when I wrote this book, I was like, this is it. This book has a purpose. It has a message that I want to get out as quickly as possible. And the fastest way to do that is to just go through and do it myself and self-publish. And so I started doing my research. I ended up meeting a few other authors who had gone that route and got some advice from them. But this does pretty much outline the process that I went through. You know, you have to write your manuscript first. And I got some initial feedback from family, from friends, that also helped motivate me to move it forward. And I ended up going through this website called Upwork, which is a freelancing website. And that's where I found resources for editing, as well as for doing the illustrations. And so I connected with some folks there that were able to help propel my book forward. And, you know, they didn't take away from what I was trying to say. They just made it sound, you know, a little bit better. And so I went through that process, went through with the illustrations, worked, you know, pretty much on a daily basis with my illustrator for about 2 months, getting the images that I wanted put together for the book. And then the publishing piece, I chose to go with Amazon just because it seemed pretty straightforward in terms of the publishing, and I knew their platform is very well known, and, you know, I could easily promote that and market that as far as Amazon. I already have Amazon accounts, so it just kind of made sense to go that route. And now I'm kind of in the distributing and marketing phase. We're just trying to get the message out there. I really want this book to be impactful and to help others, you know, especially reaching out to our young adolescent women of color and children. And I think this can be impactful for also anybody of any race, of any age, just to start to at least have that different type of open dialogue around race and diversity. So with that, how did I do this while working a full-time career? And it may not be a full-time career for some people that are writing, it may be they're going to school or, they're a full-time parent and you're having to juggle that, right? I think we all wear different hats. For me, what helped make this less of an overwhelming process was creating milestones. So creating milestones of, this is when the date that I want to have, the first draft of my manuscript completed. This is the date when I want to have, when I find an editor that I like, or a date of when I would like the editor to have the initial comments back to me, is date of when I want to have the illustrations done, of even the date of when I want to have the book published. And creating different milestones just made it a little bit more achievable for me to do instead of just trying to have to do everything all at once. I was able to spread it out and kind of schedule it based on the time that I had free, as long as I was making those milestone dates or close to it. As far as donations, so I am donating a portion of the proceeds to 2 organizations. The first one is called Pretty Brown Girls. And this particular organization, it just fits exactly with the theme of my book. So the mission for them is to empower Black and brown girls while encouraging self-acceptance, cultivating social, emotional, and intelligent well-being. Right, that's, I kind of talked about what the book was about and the themes that I was trying to promote. And, they've already got a founding, they've already got momentum. And so I want to help support them to keep pushing forward. Voices for Children is an organization that I've actually volunteered with. I volunteered with them for a year as a court-appointed special advocate for a foster child. And so they are a great organization. I've seen their work in action, and that's something that I want to support, because a lot of the kids that are in that program, like I said, are in the foster system and do suffer from low self-esteem due to, a lot of the issues that they have going on in their personal lives and family. And, these CASAs that participate in this program are such a great influence because they act as role models and advocates, and they're not a source that's being paid. It's strictly volunteer. And so the kids really open up and feel like they have someone in their corner who they can talk to outside of kind of all the legal entities that they have to deal with. And in addition to that, we attend all of their court dates and submit a report to the judge that gets reviewed, and it has recommendations of things that we feel would be beneficial to the child. And so this is an organization that I feel is very impactful. And so I'll be donating a portion of first month's proceeds from my book to these 2 organizations. So with that, open it up now for any questions that anybody has in the audience that you'd like me to answer.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Everyone feel free to unmute your microphone if you'd like to speak, or you can put your questions in the chat.
Okay, I can go first if that's okay, Charmaine.
Oh, sure, James, go ahead.
Hi, Stephanie. My name is James Harris. I'm a children's author as well. I think I have more of a comment at this point. I appreciate you writing a children's pictures book, because what you said is correct in terms of the imagery, because people really don't realize how powerful a picture is in a picture book. And for you to set the standard to place that in your book, that when young women or girls can actually see themselves in it, I think that sends a valuable and inspirational message. And great concept. I love the magic mirror, and I love that she's going through it with her sister as well, and they're both learning at the same time. So, job well done.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate that feedback. Any other questions or comments?
Hi, Stephanie. It's Brittany. I just wanted to make a comment and say that I love that you made this children's book, for young children, young African-American children. I think it's especially important for children, especially at young ages, to feel like they're able to relate and read books where they can see the resemblance within themselves and the characters in the books that they're reading. And I'm extremely excited to see what else you come out with, or any collabs or connections you've made with other authors, so that we can get more books like this in the elementary schools or even preschool levels for kids, so that they can start reading them as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for the feedback as well.
I did have just one more question for Stephanie. How did you decide on how did you decide to even pick the 5 or so illustrators that you were to choose from? I mean, did you put out a general call for looking for illustrators and then just submit whatever, or did you actually know some illustrators and just gave them feedback on what you wanted?
No, I didn't know any illustrators at the time, and so I went to this website called Upwork, because I've used it before. It's a freelancing website, so pretty much you can just type in, you can create a job posting, hey, I'm looking for an author or an illustrator, and kind of give a general description of what you're looking for, and then people apply for the job. And you can see, you can go to their websites and see what other work they've done. And you can choose from there whether or not you want to use them. And so I've used that for a couple other things, a couple other projects I've had outside of writing. And so I figured that would be the first place I could go to, because I did Google illustrators, and the ones that I found were just really, really expensive. And so that's the other element of this website. Usually you can negotiate or find something that's economical. And so from the people that applied to the job posting that I put out, I narrowed it down to 3 different illustrators whose work I liked. And then I asked them to produce the first page of my book. So I didn't give them the full manuscript, but I gave them the verbiage from the first page of my book. I gave them kind of the back cover page description of what the book is about, and some characteristics or features about Deja, of how I wanted her to look. And I chose my favorite illustration from those 3 and moved forward with that illustrator.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? All right, and how can we reach you, Stephanie?
Yeah, so the best way to reach me, you can, I do have social media, and I know Charmaine, I think you put it in the chat there. My email, social media pages are available. There's also a contact form on my author website that you can reach me at. And then if you're just looking for places to actually go and procure a copy of my book, if you want me to sign it, the easiest way to do that is to either order from my author website, or you can contact me via email and we can exchange information via like Venmo or Cash App, and I just mail out the book to you after I've signed it. And then also have 2 copies that will be coming available hopefully in the next week or so at the Moreno Valley Public Library, if you wanted to check out my book there.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, that's right. I put Stephanie's contact information in the chat so that you can save those links. Feel free to contact Stephanie if you have any other questions about her book or writing process, or any comments you'd like to send her way. Her book is on Amazon, and as she mentioned, our library Moreno Valley Public Library is getting copies of her book available for checkout with a library card. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for your time, for your wonderful presentation. And thank you so much to our wonderful audience for taking the time to join us this evening. We hope you can join us for any of our future Time for Adult events. And thank you once more, everyone, and have a good evening.